Welcome back, Wolfpack. I know you've been asking for more dark web stories, and I have returned with 5 more. So, before we delve into the dark web, whether you're sitting around a campfire, on the night shift, or even laying in bed, let my voice soothe your nightmares. In retrospect, it's kind of ironic that my love for science I chose would be my predicament. I mean, it looks unfair that my curiosity and thirst for knowledge would lead me in such a shady path. Only thing I ever wanted was to be better at my job. I am a medicine student. For as long as I can remember myself, I was fascinated by the human body. No matter how bad we treat it sometimes, it is nothing short of perfection. The structure and function of the organs, the delicate high-functioning brain, the blue snake-like veins carrying the blood into the heart to be cleaned and recycled, simply magnificent. It was a simple choice for me. I wanted to study more about the body, learn all the details it hides, and sometimes rectify it. Now, don't get me wrong, I didn't really enjoy studying to get to the medicine school. Most of the time, it was a tedious process of learning about irrelevant topics that I really don't care about. But I managed to pull through and get into the university. There, I developed very mixed feelings. Although, some lectures were diving into the secrets of what we were supposed to be learning about. Most were simple stuff read from a PDF presentation by a semi-bored professor. The kind of knowledge you could acquire by reading some science magazines. Magazines I had already read. So, most of the times I went to the campus feeling indifferent, secretly hoping that I could get to learn something amazing, like perhaps a new fun fact in the anatomy class, but that was rare. I can't say I have many friends. Come to think of it, I don't think I have any. I am friendly with all my classmates and peers, but we really don't have anything else in common, other than we study the same subject. They didn't study the way I did. Most of them valued the prestige and paycheck that comes from being a doctor. Some truly wanted to help others in times of sickness, but no one actually wanted to learn. Not the way I did. They consumed themselves in parties, drugs, and sex with each other, while I went the extra mile and studied something more than a given material every night, just to tame my lust for knowledge. I remember the day Jonathan approached me in the campus cafeteria. It was in a break between some classes we both participated in. He sat opposite to me and asked me how I was doing. We chatted a bit about everything and nothing, mostly regarding some projects we were working on as homework at the time. I liked this guy. Jonathan wasn't the best student or the most intriguing person, but I knew he also truly loved medicine and tried his best to learn more. I liked this guy. Jonathan wasn't the best student or the most intriguing person, but I knew he also truly loved medicine and tried his best to learn more than what the university spoon-fed us. I respected him for that. So, it came as a pleasant surprise when he introduced me to a new idea. "Hey man," he said, "I know that you feel bored here. I sorta get it sometimes too." Boy, was he right. "I have found a man that really knows his stuff," he continued, and then, more hesitantly, "There's a link to the dark web of a very good doctor. His methods are a bit unconventional, so he can't broadcast for the normies, but he is really skillful. I mean, at least his teaching has helped me a lot with my exams." He laughed at this. I thought about it for a while before answering. "Sure," I said. "Let's see what this mysterious doctor has to offer." By then, I had read many books and articles already, and I would give anything to see something fresh. Jonathan smiled and gave me a note with the alleged link. "Nice, bro. If you need any help with this dark web thing, give me a call. My phone is also on that note. Would be cool to chill out in this doctor's chat room and learn from him." I didn't have to call him. I politely said goodbye as he left and resumed with my lunch. But I was curious now. I am by no means a computer guy, but I can work my way through some stuff. So I won't bore you with the details of how I got to the site. Most of you here are familiar with this kind of story anyways. The path is simple. You get the appropriate software to enable you to go into the dark web, and then you start searching. You have to be very specific for what you are looking for, otherwise you'll get lost on a mountain of cyber junk, and specific I was. I got to the link I wanted relatively fast. It was a site called Anatomy 102. It had a plain gray template, and the classical ancient Greek symbol of medicine as a logo, a snake wrapping itself around a rod. Although it was a little different than the usual one, the snake looked like it was biting on something, and that something sort of resembled a human skull. That looked a little peculiar. There was a camera focused on an empty white room, and also a chat room. The chat room had around 50 active people casually talking about various medicine specializations, speculating what they would learn about today. Around 10 minutes later, 2 people appeared in the room, both wearing the typical Operation ROM uniforms, dragging a big table of surgery tools with them. One of them disappeared from the scene, and the other stood in front of the camera still wearing his mask. Hello, my dear audience. It brings me great pleasure to see so many of you here today. This is a place of learning and understanding, so I would advise all of you to pay attention and observe all the details. I liked this intro, a true professor. For all of those who happen to be new here, let me introduce myself. I'm going by the name Dr. Manson here, but you can just address me as Doctor in the chat. Every 2 weeks, we gather around here to discuss something about anatomy and how it works in practical ways. As he finished his words, the second guy got in the frame again, this time pushing a surgery table before him. The table was full. I guessed it had a dead body or a sleeping person on it. By that time, the count in the chat room read 250 online. The other guy, also wearing a mask, took the sheet that was covering the body on the bed to reveal something I was not prepared for. A living human, fully awake, muffled and tied on the bed with leather straps. He was middle-aged with brown hair and a very scared look in his eyes. The man was sweaty and in obvious distress but couldn't do much, tied like a piece of meat as he was. As you may know, the doctor continued, the digestive system is one of the most important systems in the human body. It is the source of all the energy input and output of animals. Today, we'll give it a closer look. The chat box was filled with lots of expressions of happiness, as people seemed to be content with the idea of lesson. I, for once, felt nervous. I could never expect what followed next. The doctor started operating on the man on the bed, without using any anesthesia. He cut open an incision in his belly, while the man's screams were drowned behind the muffler. After that, he started taking parts of the victim's intestines out and showing them on the camera, talking in detail about everything, and also applied pressure at certain points to demonstrate what he was talking about, generating huge amounts of pain for the helpless victim. During the whole process, he shown no hint of emotion. The chat was filled with questions, most of which he replied to, same way our professors talk to us in uni. He paid extra attention to those who wanted him to experiment on the limitations of the victim. He noted that the people asking those questions had true motivation to learn and will progress in their career. After that statement, he followed through with the suggestions given to him. Blood had started to make a puddle on the floor. Every now and then, the victim would faint by the sheer pain he felt, but the doctor's helper would make him wake up every time. The doctor insisted that it is important for the patient to have his senses in order for us to take notes of his reactions. I was shocked, but I couldn't look away. Same thing when you see a gruesome accident on the street, and you know that if you check to see what happened, you'll feel an urge to throw up, but you still turn your head and look, your eyes thirsty for the odd and the gore. The procedure was getting more and more extreme. The incision was even bigger now, and the doctor was explaining the reflexes of the stomach while holding the actual man's organs in his hand. He applied pressure to it, and the wave of gastric fluids went through the now crying man's esophagus, choking him as he was lying face up. It didn't last much longer after this. The victim went unconscious, and it seems that even the helper couldn't bring him up anymore. After a few tries, the helper looked at the doctor and nodded. The doctor then returned his face to the camera. "Alright, class. That's all I had to talk about today. Any questions?" A few messages appeared on the chat box, and he selectively answered some of them. "Unfortunately, that's all the time we had for today's class," he said, and then continued. "Okay, who would like to volunteer for the next lesson?" The chat was suddenly silent. "Oh, come on, such a shy audience. You'll never become true scientists if you are afraid to take risks. But anyhow, most of you know the procedure. If no one volunteers, I will randomly choose someone from the chat, and by next lecture in 2 weeks' time, he will be the person in this bed, leading all of you guys into enlightenment. To be honest, the patient's job is more important than mine. I am just explaining things, so he should be very proud and cherish the fact that he's actually the real teacher." Still silence. "Alright then, but I'm not happy about that," he went on. "Let me find someone myself." He appeared to be searching for someone on his monitor. "Username HealthyRaven96 will be with us the next lesson. I'll see you all then." HealthyRaven96 got instantly disconnected. The others started to log out too. While some stayed to discuss the lesson, I turned off my PC. What had I just watched? This was more like a cult than a classroom. It was natural to use a human guinea pig for teaching, but still, I learned so much. This person talked with so much passion for science and had a strange charisma, you may even call it charm. But no matter what, I decided to never open this site again. I was not going to be participating in this illegal situation. I knew how wrong this was, but deep inside me, my everlasting thirst was still demanding more. I broke my promise 2 weeks later. It was the day of the supposed lecture, and I just couldn't take it out of my mind. I logged in for Anatomy 102 once again. This time, a young woman was on the bed. The process was similar. Dr. Manson introduced himself and started his lesson, this time focused on the nervous system. I was hooked before I even knew it and watched the entire talk without even flinching this time, until the moment that the unlucky girl was dead. I hadn't even moved from my chair. And this became part of my life. I was following every lecture showing 100% attendance. I watched as men, women, and some rare times even underage people were brought into the untimely death for their shake of science. I started participating actively, asking questions about amputations and tissue damage, and sometimes I was even the one who suggested the craziest experiments. I was addicted to the gore in particular, but it was a small price to pay for the knowledge. I learned so much, for example, that the pain threshold we are taught that the human body can withstand is bullcrap. I saw with my very own eyes how much the human organism can suffer before giving up for good. That, and many other things that are not to be told in this post. The months went by fast. I kept watching the lectures. Some rare times, there was someone aspired so much from the doctor's words that he or she would volunteer for the lesson, making all of us sigh in relief. But those times were rare. It was mostly Russian roulette every week. I was scared, of course, but the risk was well worth the reward. At the same time, I studied even harder, completely locking myself out of the real world. I wanted to learn even more now. So much was I inspired by this masked man. Then a day came, which I never expected to come. The doctor had finished a lecture slowly turning a man's brains into mashed potatoes, and as always, was looking for a volunteer. After the usual awkward silence, I heard something truly terrifying. "Okay, students, next to come with us will be Lotus Eclipse." My username. My stupid username, made as a pun for my favorite car. I had thought that this might happen, but never actually thought it would. The chances were always pretty low, and I was enjoying the classes way too much to stop. For the first time since that fateful day that I had learned about this damn site, I called the only man that could understand me. Jonathan. He picked up the phone. We talked for a long time, and in the end, we managed to formulate a solution. We spent the rest of the time until my lecture in my house. We were together all the time in order to succeed what we planned. 3 days before the lesson was to happen, we were attacked while we were in the house. I didn't know how they found us, but truth be told, the doctor had never failed to locate his forced volunteer. He was with his helper as I had predicted. Jonathan had a flash earlier this week, as he had bought us gas masks as a precaution. I don't know how we foresaw that, but we were prepared for the gas that our stalkers used that night. I guess that's how the doctor managed to get his victims in the operating room in one piece every time. Perhaps people were prepared for an assault, but very few had thought of it. I was lucky to have access to a gun, heirloom of my early past father, and managed to shoot the knee of the doctor before he could attack. The helper was not much of this ice-cold man I had thought of. When I watched the live streams, he was still very willing to help us with whatever he wanted. He was very willing to help us with whatever we wanted in exchange for his life. After I got all the information I wanted, I shot him in the head just to take his annoying whining out of my ears. And here we are today. As I'm typing this, I hear the muffled voice of a man behind me. It was easy to get the codes for the streaming and the doctor's username and password from the crying helper pleading for his life, so that I could continue the job and the idea he had started. I felt that he had helped me a lot during this time, and it was time for me to help others myself. With Jonathan at my side, we would venture to experiments which no one had even dared to conduct. We would take science and medicine many steps ahead, through our will to try new things. But it just felt right that I would give Dr. Manson a great gift. He always believes that the man in the bed was doing the greater sacrifice, and I wanted him to have his honor. For his last appearance in the classroom, his screams and violent shaking on the bed, though, gave a different suggestion. I guess he wasn't such a believer and pioneer as he always thought. But no matter what, the time is now for someone new to take his place. Someone with vision, skill, and cunningness. Someone like me to continue his work. So friends, I invite you all to join us. We will learn together and find answers to all the questions we still have for the human body, so that in time we can have perfect knowledge of medicine and its practices. Come to the stream and be part of the class, as we will examine all that there is to the human organism, and feel free to ask any questions like you. My helper will be happy to answer them, or show some real-life examples to help you understand better. Now, if you'll excuse me, the lesson is about to start, and I have planned a very special lecture. As a parting gift for Dr. Manson, I will see you all in class. July 1st, 2018. A face is staring into the camera. Sandy hair, mid-20s. Male, somewhat reminiscent of a squirrel in his rabid mannerisms. The big day is finally here. This is our first time testing our new spider bot on the dark web, and we're both pretty excited. We've only got a week left to iron out all the bugs before Kevin has to defend his thesis, but I won't anticipate any problems. Kevin is nervous as hell, but the kid is an absolute genius. He's still configuring his Tor network and VPN, so I'm going to catch everyone up who are just joining the stream now. Typical web crawlers haven't been able to explore the dark web because they can't index specific inputs like forms or authentication passphrases. I'm mostly here for moral support and don't understand it completely, but Kevin's spiderbot has machine learning algorithms which have been training the last few weeks to learn a new adaptive method of keyword selection. You hear that diversive snort at my oversimplification. Yeah, that's Kevin. Say hello, Kevin. The streamer looks off camera. Off camera voice. Shut up, Brian. Whatever, screw you too, man. Based on the training results, we should be able to index a couple thousand pages a day. Google only reaches 16% of all available web pages, so that means it's going to take us approximately forever to get through it all with our current computing power. This is just proof of concept though, All we're using at the moment is Kevin's old laptop that his dog Crinkles practically smashed. The power cord was stretched across the room, and this little bulldog came barreling right through. Indistinct grunt off camera. Hold on, it looks like we're good to go. If all goes well, then in a couple of months you're going to start reading about how the dark web ceased to exist because of our little spider. I'm going to end the stream now to get it started, but join us again tomorrow to explore the cool stuff we found. July 3rd, 2018. The sandied hair man is back. There are bags under his eyes, but he's enthusiastic as ever. Hey guys, it's me again. Sorry for the delay, but we hit an unexpected bump. Spider was doing great and had already logged a few hundred sites when it abruptly stopped with this weird error. It keeps telling us that it had already indexed everything. Kevin is able to manually direct it to keep finding new sites, but as soon as it's automated, it just says it's finished again. Kevin is practically ripping his hair out, but it's not like this has ever been a complete waste of time. We did discover a brand new, never before seen cover that I'm pretty sure didn't used to exist. All Kevin had to do was put it on a white t-shirt a week ago, then eat nothing but barbecue, chicken wings, and sweet and sour sauce. The camera starts to pan to the left. An unseen hand shoves it back into place. Anyway, Brian rambles. It looks like we might still be a while, so, off voice camera. We got it. I don't understand, but I've got it. Well, whip me red and call me applesauce, because it looks like we're back in business. Off voice camera. What? That's not a saying. Nobody says that. Kevin. You have got to get out more. People are saying that all the time. So what's the holdup? Off voice camera. It's all linked. Look at this. A drug marketplace, an anime forum, a counterfeit producer, some dungeon stuff. You have my attention. Off voice camera. It's all referencing the same destination. Spider stops indexing because it thinks the whole dark web is just one site. I'm gonna try to get in. That relates to a joke I know. So a drug lord, a weeboo, a con man, and a porn star all walk into a bar. Off voice camera. This isn't a real joke. Just shut up. I'm trying to concentrate. And the barman says, what are you guys doing together? So the drug lord says, off voice camera. They've all got something to hide. Off voice camera. It's gotta be the blackmail thing. These guys must be tunneling into other websites to get info or hold them ransom, but there's no way they can be everywhere. Every single site Spider finds. Crap. Oh, like that's a real saying. Off voice camera. They're on my computer. I have no idea how they trace Spider back, but the mouse is moving on its own. It's typing an address into Tor. What are you doing? Popping out the battery. The power button isn't working. No, don't. The streamer dives off camera, bumping noises. Dude, give that back. The streamer returns in front of the camera, holding a battered old laptop. Nah man, this is what the people are here to see. Let's find out where these hackers are trying to take us. I swear to God, Brian. An overweight torpedo wearing a blotchy shirt of unclassifiable color hurtles across the screen. The streamer's chair tips over, and then both men go down. The laptop is left in front of the camera, where a long line of seemingly random letters and symbols are typing themselves into the address bar of a Tor browser. Indistinct muffles swearing. The website loads. A countdown timer starts at 15 minutes, begins to tick down. Kevin and Brian stick their heads up over the desk in unison to stare at it. At least shut the damn camera off, Kevin says. Only if you'll let it count down to see what happens, Brian replies, swatting away Kevin's hand which stretches for the laptop. God, you're such an ass. Whatever, fine. Just shut it off. The sandy man begins to wave. When the stream turns, the timer reads 15 seconds. The angle is weird, as if the camera is in his lap, hidden beneath a desk. The looming Brian is pacing and muttering to himself in the corner of the screen. Kevin surreptitiously leans over the camera and gives a thumbs up. mouthing the letters OMG. The timer hits 0 and stays there. A dog starts barking in the distance. Are you happy now? Kevin grunts. Give it back, okay? There's a knock on the door. A single knock, loud and deliberate. The barking intensifies. Snarling, growling, all the hell breaks loose in its little world. Not really, Kevin whispers. A second knock. Then a third, each about 3 seconds apart. You get it? Both men say at nearly the same instant. They stare at each other until the next knock. This is your fault. Kevin wheezes in a voice halfway between a whisper and a shout. Yeah, he replies. He approaches the door, the camera angle still at waist height. Then in a louder voice, who is it? Are you still recording? Kevin hisses. Unbelievable. The screen is filling by the door as Kevin gets closer. He's right up against it, so he's probably looking through the peephole. Crash! A sound loud enough to max out the speaker volume. The door explodes inward in a wave of splinters, the screen shaking erratically, and there's nothing but splinters and lances of light and screaming. A gray-skinned hand streaks across the camera. If you freeze the frame, you'll notice that the skin looks more like coarse cloth, and that there is stitching running up and down the fingers. The stream cuts off. July 10th, the streamer is back. His face seems paler, his skin is breaking out, and his hair hangs in greasy strings around his face. He's sitting at a bare table in a concrete room. The lights are dim, but there's a large man standing in the back of the room. His hands are folded motionlessly in front of him. Yeah, hi guys. This might be my last broadcast for a while. He glances back at the figure in the corner, but there's no movement. Back to the camera. Kevin's okay. I mean, he's different, but he's okay. He glances back to the corner of the room, but the figure still hasn't budged. Brian's shadow shifts with his movement. For a moment, the stitched skin of the person in the corner is visible, running all the way up his arm. I guess they had something like Spider. They were only tunneling into websites on the dark web anyway. I guess those kind of people could disappear without as many questions being asked. They wanted my followers to know though. Brian swallows. He looks behind again. Then, a sudden burst of movement, grabbing the camera and dragging it up to his face. Close your browser now. Shut off your computer. The figure in the back has started to move. Great, lumbering steps charging forward. Brian's words are a breathy rush. It only takes 15 minutes for them to find you once they've established a connection. The cloth hand seize Brian from behind and drag him off camera. Don't do this, Kevin, he shouts. How long has your browser been open already? Just shut the damn thing off. There's a heavy thud. A heavy-set face appears in front of the camera for a movement. The human eyes look strange embedded within the cloth. Stitches run down either side of the face along the jawline. The cloth might just be sewn to the skin, but it fits so closely to the anatomy of Kevin's face that it looks more like cloth has replaced it. The stream cuts to black, replaced by the last few seconds of a depleting timer. Do you know that a person can survive without water for only 3 days? But Gandhi was able to survive as much as 21 days without food. Those were things I used to know as a normal student in a small town. I know none of those things anymore. I just know about rage and feeling constantly hungry. I was in the last year of high school and working a part-time job so I could save money for higher education. Things were dull, but mostly fine until an otherwise normal afternoon after class. It happened in the light of day. I was shoved inside a vehicle with expertise. I never saw the faces of the men that took me. I never saw their vans stinking of old blood and rancid food. I could only see the blackness of my blind and taste the slight sweetness of chloroform before I lost my senses. When I woke up again, I was completely naked in a poorly lit room. The state I was in made me expect the worst, but there was no pain or bleeding indicating that kind of violence. It was cold, and there was a maddening dripping sound. Something was gleaming in the dark. As soon as I adjusted my eyes, I realized it was a knife. Drip, drip, drip. The small room had nothing but an already dirty toilet, the knife, and a crack on the ceiling dripping slimy, slightly green water. The walls and floor were gray and featureless. The very strong light, like a camera flash, popped into my face, blinding all my senses with a shock. It disappeared after a moment, and I heard a voice. "We want to watch your death. Let's see how long it will take." They took someone unremarkable, frail, with nothing to live for. But now, I had a purpose. I had to frustrate my captors. If they wanted to watch my death, I would be the most resilient person in the world. I wouldn't grant their wish. Back then, I didn't know I was being watched by a bunch of sick and twisted people who kept up with my daily misery in the comfort of their house and their anonymousness. I slept on the cold, hard floor. Food never came, and the only source of water was the murky leak on the ceiling. I drank it, humiliated. It tasted worse than crap, and I would know that, since I fed on my own waste during the first few days. The only indication that a day had ended was the blinding flash and the same cold, mocking voice telling me they were surprised I had made it so far. I was so hungry. So very hungry. The room was getting hotter than my breathing every day. There was no proper ventilation. It seemed to just be enough to not let me die from carbon monoxide poisoning. A merciful death compared to the one they planned for me. I didn't know why they chose me. I still don't know. I never wronged anyone. I never excelled at anything to be a target of one's envy. It was just a purposeless act of evil. The fact that it was completely random made my hatred grow, and with it, my determination. My stomach hurt beyond words. I was constantly sick from the putrid smells around me. My body ached all over. My skin was matted and flaky, my hair falling from malnutrition. I grabbed a knife. I felt watched in cruel anticipation. Not today. I chopped off my left pinky and shoved it in my mouth before I could think too much about it. My own blood dripped on my chest as I chewed on my own bones. The crunching sound should be so sickening. My teeth would be hurting so much, or even breaking bone against bone. I should be horrified to phagocyte a part of my own body, but I was just happy to be eating. After that, I felt my body growing stronger every day, like a member of the cannibal tribe on Papua New Guinea after ritualistically feeding on their departed loved ones. I laughed manically for hours at a time and trembled endlessly, but I was more alive than I've ever been in that captivity. I rationed on my food wisely. I needed my right hand, so it was crucial to spare at least 4 fingers on it, but I was free to feed in my left hand. My toes were pretty much useless. I'd been dragging myself on the floor to move around anyway, but I didn't need to feed on myself for long. No more than a week after I first took my bite of myself, the voice after the blinding flash had something else to say. "We are selling you." The official story is that I miraculously escaped my perpetrators during their flawed operation to move me to my new owner, and by the time I had reached a neighbor and the police was called, they had already fled the crime scene. The investigation was kept under extreme secrecy, so I didn't make the world news. Hell, I only made the local news as local teenager mutilated by unknown man. Someone even donated me a prosthetic hand. The police was able to take down the website where my daily torture was being streamed non-stop, and I just then found out that I was a star. I laughed for days because everyone felt so bad for me, not knowing that the torture I endured was way beyond losing a hand and a few toes. I laughed for days because I know the truth, but no one else does. Right when they opened the door to my prison, my body felt like it was possessed by a bestial creature, and before I knew it, I used superhuman strength to crush the bones of 5 men all at once, then eat their flesh corpses whole. I even licked the leftover blood from the walls before I opened the doors and headed to the closest house, dragging my bad foot. In that moment, I felt like I was the co-pilot of my body. The wheelsman was a voice screaming kill and devour. I could never escape if something hadn't taken a hold of me. I'm not strong or even fast. I'd do anything to spend the rest of my life quietly, having my body and mind slowly heal and recover from a devastating trauma. The problem is that eating the raw flesh of my captors was the most pleasant experience I've ever had in my life. And while I've been chasing mercilessly all the monsters that watched my suffering for their own enjoyment, I'm too hungry. Their tainted flesh has not been enough for me. No, for us. Last year, I ordered my first mystery box off the dark web. Basically, what happens is you pay an unknown person somewhere in the world money through a cryptic ordering channel so both parties can remain anonymous, and that person will ship you something based off the amount you send. Boxes typically tend to be between $30 and up to $500 or even more. For my own protection of being a complete noob, I decided to pay middle ground to deter the risk of paying too little or too high and not getting anything of value. After I placed the order, I was a complete wreck from anxiety until the box finally arrived. 1, from fear of the unknown, and 2, because of the real possibility that I could be ripped off, and there would be nothing I could do about it. 2 weeks later, to my surprise, what arrived was a seemingly new MacBook Air, heavily wrapped in bubble plastic and black duct tape, hidden beneath an abundant amount of medium-sized pink shipping peanuts. All in all, the mystery box cost me $113 and some change. So when I finally saw the contents, I considered my first time ordering to be a complete success. Almost 4 months to the day after my first successful deep web order, I decided I wanted to try and order something again. I psyched myself up by telling myself that I would repeat the exact same steps, only this time I would buy a box for $300, since only spending $100 put a MacBook in my hands last time. I wrestled with very two rational thoughts that seemed to keep coming to mind. One of which was, I was extremely lucky it turned out so well the first time, and the other thought was that I needed to keep every step the same, including the price if I was going to attempt this again. The sobering rationality was quickly extinguished as soon as I glanced over the MacBooks lying seductively at the foot of my bed. Thinking back on it now, really my decision came down to good old-fashioned greed, not knowing how to leave the craps table when you've already beat the house. So $300 it is. I'm all in. This time after placing my order, the pseudo-confidence for my first victory squelched any real potential fears I had. Any new anxiety that I tried to gain life was snuffed out from the wildly successful last go-around. 15 days after placing my order, I pulled into the driveway on a Tuesday evening after work to see a medium-sized yellow and white box patiently waiting for me on the front porch. I could literally feel the dopamine rush run down the back of my neck and send a warm burst of energy down through my body. The sudden jolt shot through my limbs, which caused me to grip the steering wheel with white knuckles and bright eyes that were focused on the mystery box to the left of me. I nervously exited the car, moving as slowly as a teenager on his way to the front door of his very first date. Slowly, I climbed the 3 concrete steps to the wooden porch and instantly noticed the box is slightly smaller than the one I ordered last time. It was roughly 8 inches high and 8 inches across. What could it be? I eased down to squat and pick it up since I have no idea how heavy it is. Instantly, I'm amazed at how much more this one weighs than the last one despite its smaller size. Quickly, I unlock the deadbolt. Out of pure instinct, I glance around for onlookers, and when it's clear, I tuck the box under my arm like a running back and stiff-arm the defending door, slamming it behind me. I gently place the 5-pound box on the coffee table. I use the door key to carefully slice the yellow transparent tape across the top to free the 2 flaps being held captive. Too excited to cut along the edges, I drop the keys and attempt to pull the flaps open with my strength, but proves no match for the well-packaged box. Note to self: calm down, relax, and confidently but calmly, and I do mean calmly, cut the remaining tape and open the box. After cutting through the remaining tape, I made it a point to slowly place the keys back on the coffee table, just to prove that I was back in charge and not the rogue manic who attempted to take over. Very carefully, I open the box and see a very large beige terry cloth. It was folded several times into a rectangle to void the 1-inch dead space that ran along the top inside of the box to protect whatever was under from sliding around. I reached down and poked the cloth a couple of times, as if I was expecting someone or something to suddenly jump out. The terry cloth was surprisingly soft, Not sure why I feel a need to point this out, but even thinking about it now, it amazes me how soft it felt. Inside the box, there was an old handcrafted wooden box with intricate floral details and a single black round button on top that extended about 1.75 inches. Taped to the button was a note that read, "You will be paid $1 million in the event you decide to push the button. If you in fact do push the button, a single life will unexpectedly be taken and no trace or repercussion will be tied to you. You will be given 24 hours to decide, at which time my confidant will return to retrieve the box and or hand you your payment." Pondering on until the 23rd hour, I reluctantly decided to push the button. I felt horrible knowing I selfishly took the love of money over a person's life. For the next 30 minutes, I wept and pleaded for forgiveness, praying for the person selected for my soulless personal gain was somehow a murderer, rapist, or someone deserving of having their fate in my hands. My anguish and grief were finally sidetracked as the doorbell rang. Standing at the door was a youthful-looking older man, whom I would guess to be in his mid-60s, a very slender man, straight up and down wearing a black fedora and a black pinstripe suit that was just too big for his small frame. The old man wasted no time in directly asking me for the box. "I believe you have something of ours, young fella." As I handed him the wooden box wrapped in the terry cloth, he pulled a large box into his chest, as if carrying a delicate newborn wrapped in a hospital blanket. At this point, the old man noticeably makes a point to stand up straight. "Now, I've got something for you," he says in an almost sarcastic tone. He extends his arm as if to shake my hand, and in his grip he is holding what clearly appears to be a check. I see the $1 million written on the check, and my head once again falls in shame. I can taste the saltwater-like tears as they run down my face. Somehow, I manage to grab the check without even looking at it. Startling me, the old man raises his thumb and first finger. He holds the pose for a second longer than he actually should. He then winks, clicks his teeth, and shoots me the "Get 'em, Tiger" imaginary gun all in the same motion, spins on his heels, and just like that, he was gone. 2 minutes felt like hours as I stood in the doorway in disbelief, the whole time analyzing how the last 24 hours were even possible, in the total disbelief trying to connect the unconnectable dots of how a check was made out to me with my first and last name. The payer name was a Solomon King. The check header displayed the same bank name I currently have an account with. Is this some sort of sick joke? I needed to sit down and think. Almost as soon as the door shut, my phone buzzed with an incoming text message from a 0000 number. I opened the text and all it was a single website link. I nervously pressed the link. Links from unknown sources can be harmful and can be potentially damaging to your phone with unwanted viruses. Do you wish to continue? I pressed the continue button. Agreeing to follow the link, my screen navigated to a website that showed a video of a man sitting in a chair with a black knapsack over his head. He was tied with his hands behind his back in what appeared to be an unfinished basement, or some type of garage with cinder block walls. You could hear his muffled cries echoing off the cement walls. He had no shoes or socks, just soiled blue jeans and a white t-shirt with new and old bloodstains from his collar to the top of his chest. From the left of the screen, an arm with a wristwatch came into the view, holding a silver revolver which was pointed inches from the middle of the knapsack. Involuntarily, I yell a warning for the man to watch out. It's no use. The man can't hear me. Unable to turn away, I watched in horror as this muscular hand slowly tensed and squeezed, sending a single bullet directly into his knapsack. The body of the man clenched so tight, he appeared to sit straight up in his seat. His feet and toes curled into tiny fists as his right shoulder twitched and moved several times. The camera then focused in on his wristwatch of the shooter's arms, which was still raised. The time on the watch showed 4:39, which was 33 minutes ago. I instantly realized this was an approximate time I had pressed the button on the box. The video then stopped. In horror, I clear my web history and erase the text message, assuming this is the death that I caused. With all the energy I could muster up, I bravely get into my Ford Focus and drive to the bank. I pulled up just past the ATM and opened my door. You see, My damn window no longer goes down ever since I left my window cracked last August during that wicked downpour that swept through the valley. Anyways, I enter my card and PIN, then select deposit to deposit the check. If you're wondering why I would use an ATM, it's a must. I know Alice is the only teller who works on Wednesdays, and she's going to make a rise about how I came across $1 million check, and ask more questions than the check is worth. This is my only choice. That night, I couldn't sleep. Remorse and anticipation of my new wealth knocked on my eyelids every time I attempted to close them. The next day, I received a call from the bank. Too scared to answer it, I let it go to voicemail. 2 minutes later, my phone chirped, letting me know of the new voicemail. I called my own number, listened to the automated message, and hit pound. Please enter your password. 0814. You have 1 unheard message and 2 saved messages. To listen to the unheard message, not letting her finish, I press 1. First unheard message. A curious but confident male voice begins to speak. Mister, this is Thomas, the branch manager down at the Community Financial. We received your deposit and have a few questions for you. I guess the first thing is, a deposit of that amount would always need to be made in person. With that being said, we also began to process your deposit request, and I'm not sure if you were attempting to deposit and cash the funds. Well, regardless, there would have been, I instantly noticed this emphasis on the word been, a mandatory hold on any deposit of that amount. It seems that the account of Solomon King, who also holds the account with the institution, has insufficient funds. We need to have a word with you about this matter, mister. Please call me at once. Click. Message sent today at 9:35 a.m. To delete message, press 7. To save message, press 9. I know you're frowning. The title is weird. I know. But if you could just give me a moment, I'll explain. I'll have to be fast though. I don't know how close they are. Essentially, I ordered myself on the dark web. I'm a drug user, I'll admit it. Weed is my usual go-to, but I buy that off my friend. If, however, I want to get something a little heavier, like acid or coke, I'll just order it off the dark web. It's surprisingly simple. A few clicks, some Bitcoin transfers, and then boom, I'll have acid in my P.O. box. But I'm also a curious guy. The dark web has always intrigued me. Up until a few days ago, I had only been on there to buy drugs off sites some of my friends gave to me. But late one night, I was sober and at home, which was a rare thing for me. So, since I was bored, I decided to boot up my Tor browser and try and see what sort of screwed up crap I could find in the dark web. If you've ever been on the dark web, you'll know that you can't just search up Red Rooms or Hitman for Hire and get results. No, you have to find links for these websites first. So, I hopped back onto Google again and tried to find some links to a messed up website. I know it's weird that I was actively searching for the worst, but as soon as I got on the dark web that night, I had a sense of morbid curiosity overcome me. Anyways, I spent a little while trying to find some links. Anything I found though was either too tame for me, or links that didn't work. At this point, I was about ready to give up, and I wish I had. But in one final attempt, I clicked on Reddit, hopping into r/deepweb. I didn't think I would find anything. So, I just scrolled through hot for about half an hour, before sorting by new. Then, I found it. One simple text post titled, Slayer's Assassination and Life-Ruining Services. In the text box in the post was what seemed to be just a random assortment of numbers and letters. It took my tired brain a second to figure out what it was, but I realized pretty quickly. It was a link, presumably to a Hitman website. So, I decided to paste the link into my dark web browser, and what do you know, it worked. But before I decided to go any further, I figured I should go back into the OP's profile to see if they had posted any other dark web links. However, when I went back to the post in question, OP's profile was deleted. Anyways, I reopened my dark web tab and hopped onto the site. Up along the top of the website was its name, Slayer's Assassination and Life-Ruining Services, and next to it, what looked to be a skull inside a crosshair. I chuckled when I saw that. The site must be fake. Upon scrolling down, however, I was not disappointed. There was a paragraph of white text on a black background, and a small box to the right of the text that just said, "Place an order." The text was the main part though. As it took up most of the page, it read, "Slayer's Assassinations and Life-Ruining Services offers everything from acid attack, crippling, blinding, castration, torture, beatings, and good old death. We have the lowest prices out of any company running similar services, and we are worldwide. We have a dedicated and experienced group of staff based all over the world. If you need someone to be assassinated, or maybe you just want them scarred for life, don't hesitate to contact us." Again, I laughed. This had to be satire, right? Hell, I was even tempted to order it on someone just to see what would happen. Ironically, I actually have a half-decent job so I can afford to. Better not to risk it though, I thought to myself. I was about to close my computer and call it for a night when I heard a knock at the door. I live alone, so it was unusual to get visitors, especially so late at night. But when I opened my door, it was just my good buddy Mark, who also happened to be my weed plug. As I opened the door, he didn't hesitate to let himself in and shove a big baggie full of pot in my face. "This, dude, is the best crap I've had in a minute. We gotta try some." I couldn't say no. Cut to a couple hours later. It's early morning, and Mark and I are chilling on the couch, both blazed as hell. He suddenly decides to get up, and I assume he's going to get some leftover pizza, but he walks over to my desk and computer. "Slayer's Assassinations. Are you gonna kill someone or something?" He mutters. "What?" I reply. "Your computer, dude. It's got some hacker crap on it. It's the dark web, man. Don't screw with it." At this point, I'm still on my couch, half asleep and not paying full attention. However, I sat up pretty fast when he said the words, "Hey man, let's order a hitman on you." I hopped up and walked over to my PC. Part of my brain was screaming no. What the hell are you doing? But the majority of my brain, which was also the high part, was thinking about how funny it would be to order a hitman on myself, so I agree. I do make him get out of the chair though, because I didn't want him seeing what my credit card numbers were, as I transferred some Bitcoin. At the end, after I wrote all my personal details, like my address, age, and even a photo, I had to select what I wanted to happen to me. I just selected plain old assassination, as it was actually cheaper than some of the other things. I could have paid an extra couple of grand to be beaten before my death, but even my high brain didn't want to splash the cash too much on my own death. God, this is ridiculous. Anyways, I placed the order and then replied to my confirmation email, and boom, it was done. A couple of clicks and I had ordered myself on the dark web. Mark and I laughed about it for a while, but then he left about an hour later and I fell asleep not too long after. I woke up around 9 AM, which meant I got at least 6 hours of sleep, even if it felt like I got 3. I got up and out of the bed, threw on some track pants and a cotton shirt, and brewed myself a coffee before sitting down to play some games and just enjoy my Sunday. Can you imagine how shocked I was when I saw that I had ordered my death the previous night? Even though I still thought the site was bullcrap, I still felt a pit open up in my stomach. Even when I'm high, I usually can make sensible decisions. I chuckled. Not like I could remember it anyway, but I guess Mark's new crap was really good. I would assume a normal human being would be able to do something else, but I was still kind of out of it from the night before, so I just carried on with my day. I was a little more paranoid, sure, but as I said, I just assumed it was BS. I even laughed at the email I got from the website, saying that their hitman has been dispatched and was on its way. It was like ordering a package off of Amazon. I was tempted to email back and ask for same-day delivery. But I didn't need to ask, because that's exactly what I got. I didn't see it arrive. But around the time I started to cook myself a crappy dinner, I noticed a blacked-out sedan parked on the other side of the road from my house. I didn't live in a rural area, but there is a lot of trees and bushes between each of the houses on my street. So I would be surprised if any other house saw the car except for mine. At this point, I was freaking out. What if this site was real? I don't own any weapons, aside from a slightly larger than average kitchen knife. Screw it. I'm confronting it, I decided. I put on a hoodie and slid the knife into my front pocket before waltzing out of my own house and walking right up to the driver's side window of the vehicle. Even I was astonished at my own courage. Knocking on the window, nothing happened. It was rather anticlimactic. I was fully prepared to have a fight for my life, all because I did something really dumb while I was baked. But like I said, nothing happened. I even put my head right up to the window, as if there was a reflection, to try and get a better look to see what's inside. I could barely see what was inside of the car, but all I could make out were 2 empty seats. No one was even inside. I got all hyped up for nothing. I decided to wait out by the car for a bit, but after half an hour or so, I was hungry and I had to go back inside to take my dinner out of the oven. I swear, it was only a minute between me going inside to take my dinner out of the oven and looking back out of the window and the car being gone. I didn't even hear it go. Guess I'm eating my dinner with all my curtains closed and doors locked, I muttered to myself. I had just started to calm down when the power shut off. It was sunny outside, and coupled with the car, I now knew that this was the real deal. I had signed my own death warrant. I ran into my upstairs bedroom and locked the door, and then hid under the bed. I couldn't call the cops. What would I say? Oh yes, hello sir. Turns out, while super high, I paid $5,000 for some anonymous hitman to kill me, and now he's arrived. Send an officer ASAP, please and thank you. So, I just stayed hidden under my bed, and still am now. I've been here for an hour now writing this. Think of this as my epitaph. I know I'm scared. Just a minute ago, I heard my back door slowly creak open. This piece of writing may seem humorous to you, the reader, but in reality as you read this, I'm under my bed praying to God that lost all faith in me years ago to spare me, to let me go. But I know that won't happen. My bedroom door just opened, and I can see a big pair of black boots. Thanks for watching, Wolfpack. If you want to submit your story, my email and subreddit will be in the description below. And also, if you're not subscribed, please do if you want. And don't forget to like and comment as well. Have beautiful nightmares. And I will see you next time.